The sun fell below the horizon, throwing a warm golden glow across the living room. Sarah sat on the couch, nervously tapping her knee. The air was thick with unspoken words, and the quiet felt like a stifling blanket over her. She looked at the clock. It was almost 6. Mark was late again. As she waited, her thoughts returned to the talk they had a week before. "You're holding me back," she cried, her voice wavering from fury and frustration. It was a watershed moment, the result of years of feeling confined by their marriage. Mark had glanced at her, confused and saddened. "What do you mean?" he had inquired, his brow furrowing. As she sat alone, she wondered if she had passed an uncrossable line. Sarah and Mark had been married for 7 years, and while there had been periods of happiness, an underlying tension had been developing. Sarah aspired to build her own business, explore the world, and live an adventurous lifestyle. But Mark was satisfied with their usual and predictable life. He was a creature of habit, and Sarah had always appreciated his consistency, but recently it felt more like a prison. Flashbacks highlighted their early days together, which were full of passion and dreams. They had met in college, and they were both ambitious and energetic. They would spend hours talking about their future, sharing their hopes and dreams. Sarah's ambitions, however, dimmed over time. She had given up her goals for the security of their life together, but she was now at a crossroads. Sarah's anxiety increased when she received an invitation to a famous entrepreneurial conference. She couldn't pass up the opportunity to network with and learn from successful businesswomen. When she told Mark the news, he disregarded it as unfeasible. "We have responsibilities," he replied with a definitive tone. Sarah addressed him again because she felt upset and unheard. "Mark, I need to grow. I can't keep living like this." The debate became heated, and she informed him he was holding her back. The days after their confrontation were stressful. Mark became aloof, immersed in his work. Sarah felt the weight of her remarks and realized she could have pushed him too far. She attempted to reach out, but he remained locked off, his silence a stinging reminder of their strained relationship. Sarah immersed herself in her work as she prepared for the conference, aiming to show herself that she was capable of success. She met remarkable people who shared their tales of overcoming adversity, and for the first time in years, she felt hopeful. But Mark's absence loomed huge. He chose not to attend the conference and stayed at home. Sarah felt a sense of loneliness when she discussed her experiences with her friends, who urged her to pursue her aspirations. When she returned home, she discovered Mark packing his luggage. "I need some space," he murmured, his voice firm but heavy with pain. Sarah's heart fell. "Are you leaving me?" she asked, her voice scarcely audible. Mark relocated to a little apartment nearby, and the separation felt unreal. Sarah was divided between relief and grief. She pushed herself into her new career, giving her everything, but the emptiness of their home was oppressive. Sarah's new business began to prosper after a few weeks. She acquired fame and began to form a network of supporting friends. However, every victory was tinged with grief since she knew Mark was not present to partake in her victories. Meanwhile, Mark grappled with his decision. He missed Sarah but felt justified in his decision. He believed she needed to discover herself, but he also experienced sentiments of abandonment. Their friends were divided, with some supporting Sarah's desire for independence and others believing Mark was correct to prioritize stability. One evening, Sarah got a call from Mark. He wanted to meet. Nervously, she consented, her pulse pounding with expectation and anxiety. They met in their favorite cafe, a place full with memories. The atmosphere was fraught with unspoken feelings as they sat across from one another. "I've been thinking," Mark said hesitantly. "Perhaps I was too rigid. I only wanted to safeguard what we had." Sarah's heart broke at his vulnerability. "I didn't mean to push you away," she explained quietly. "I just wanted to be seen." Their chat triggered an outpouring of emotions, and for the first time in weeks, they began to interact openly. Sarah expressed her hopes and aspirations, the fire that had been sparked within her. She discussed the women she met at the conference, their stories of perseverance and accomplishment, and how they motivated her to take control of her life. Mark listened closely, his emotions ranging from defensive to comprehending. "I never wanted to stifle you," he said, his voice husky with sorrow. "I just thought we were building a life together, and I didn't want to lose that. But I felt like I was losing myself," Sarah explained, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Mark, I need to grow. I need to know I can stand on my own 2 feet." The talk hung in the air, laden with the weight of their common history. Mark leaned across the table, grabbing her hand in his. "I don't want to lose you, Sarah. But I also don't want to keep you back. Perhaps we should find a method to encourage one another's dreams." As they spoke, a spark of hope sparked between them. They began to talk about what a new partnership would look like, one in which both of their goals were acknowledged and encouraged. They resolved to take it slowly, talk more honestly, and support each other's personal journeys. In the coming weeks, they began to restore their connection. Mark attended Sarah's business events, encouraging her as she made aggressive moves toward her goals. He also surprised her with a modest office area to operate from, demonstrating his commitment to her development. Sarah, in response, made an effort to appreciate Mark's steadiness in their life, perceiving it as a virtue rather than a weakness. However, the road to reconciliation was not without difficulties. There were times when Sarah felt uncertain and insecure, particularly when her business suffered difficulties. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, she arrived home defeated. Mark was waiting for her, offering a warm supper and a listening ear. "I don't know if I can do this," she said, her voice quivering. "What happens if I fail?" Mark placed his arms around her and held her hard. "You will not fail. You're stronger than you realize. And even if things don't go as planned, I will be there for you. We are in this together." His words soothed her wounded spirit and revived her determination. With Mark's encouragement, she began to embrace the trials of entrepreneurship, learning to handle the ups and downs with tenacity. Their bond became deeper over time. They learned to celebrate each other's accomplishments, no matter how modest, and to rely on one another in difficult times. Sarah's firm grew, and she enjoyed her work, while Mark explored his own interests, including painting and joining a local book club. However, just as everything appeared to be coming into place, a new hurdle arose. Sarah was offered the opportunity to extend her firm globally, which would require her to travel frequently. Excitement rose within her, but when she told Mark the news, she observed a flash of concern in his eyes. "Are you certain you want to take this on?" he inquired, his voice tinged with concern. "It could mean a lot of time away from home." "I have to do this, Mark," she stated, her heart beating. "This is what I have always desired. I cannot let fear keep me back again." Mark's expression changed, and Sarah felt a familiar tightness seep back in. "I just don't want to lose you again," he explained sadly. "I don't want to go back to feeling like I'm not enough." The talk devolved into an argument, with old wounds reviving as they attempted to find common ground. Sarah was divided between her ambition and her affections for Mark, while he struggled with insecurity and fear of abandonment. In the heat of the moment, Sarah blurted out, "Perhaps I should just go alone. Maybe I don't need you at all." The words hung in the air, harsh and painful, and she quickly regretted them. Mark's face sank, and he turned aside, his silence sounding louder than any words. That night, they slept in separate rooms, the gap between them felt insurmountable. Days passed into weeks, and the anxiety hung like a heavy cloud. Sarah immersed herself in her work, but the joy she previously felt was replaced by shame and doubt. Mark, too, appeared distant, retreating into his own world as they both battled to manage their emotions. Sarah received a call one evening from her mentor inviting her to a networking event in New York City. It was an opportunity to engage with significant persons in her industry, and she felt a rush of excitement. But as she hung up the phone, the weight of her circumstances weighed heavily on her. She knew accepting the offer would mean spending more time away from home, and she couldn't shake the idea that it would drive Mark even further away. That night, she sat on the side of their bed, staring at the wall and lost in contemplation. Mark entered the room with an inscrutable expression. "What's on your mind?" he inquired, his tone soft but cautious. "I got invited to a networking event in New York," she explained, hoping to gauge his reaction. "It's a big opportunity for my business." Mark furrowed his brow, and she could see the tension in his gaze. "That's wonderful, Sarah. But, what about us? What about the time we've spent attempting to rebuild?" "I know," she answered, her voice shaking. "However, this is vital to me. I can't continue to put my dreams on hold. I thought we had pledged to assist each other." "We did," he explained, his tone softening. "But I am terrified, Sarah. I do not want to lose you again. I don't want to be the reason you feel unable to pursue your aspirations." Tears welled in her eyes as she understood how connected their problems were. "You aren't holding me back, Mark. I just need to find a balance. I want to make this work, but I can't if I feel forced to pick between you and my aspirations." Mark sighed and ran a hand over his hair. "I do not want to be the anchor that draws you down. But I also don't want to be the one left behind as you pursue something that may lead you away from me." The conversation hung thick in the air, and Sarah experienced the usual twinge of annoyance mixed with affection. "What if we attempt and make it work? I can return on weekends, and we can communicate every day. I don't want to lose you either." Mark gazed at her, his face softening. "I want to believe that, but it's difficult. I need to know that you are still dedicated to us, even as you chase your goals." "I am," she said, her heart beating. "I love you, Mark. I want us to grow together, not separately. But I also need to grow as a person." After a lengthy time, Mark nodded slowly. "Okay. Let us try it. But we have to communicate. No more shutting down or avoiding difficult conversations." They both knew it would be difficult, but they were prepared to battle for their relationship. With a tentative deal in place, Sarah accepted the invitation to New York, feeling both excited and nervous. Sarah mentally and emotionally prepared for the moment as it neared. She packed her luggage, full of purpose but also concerned about what it would imply for her relationship with Mark. She promised herself to stay connected, to share her experiences with him, and to prioritize their relationship even from a distance. The night of the event was electrifying. Sarah mingled with industry titans, absorbing their knowledge and energy. She was energized by the possibilities that lied ahead. But as she networked and shared her vision, a piece of her heart yearned for Mark. She missed his presence, support, and the way he helped her feel grounded. That evening, she called him from her hotel room, her heart beating as she dialed his number. "Hey," she said when he picked up, her voice warming at the sound of his familiar tone. "Hey," he said, sounding slightly distant. "How are things going?" "It's amazing. I met some wonderful people, and I finally feel like I'm on the right track," she exclaimed, attempting to convey her pleasure. "That's wonderful, Sarah." He added, "I'm very proud of you," but she could sense the hesitancy in his voice. "Are you all right?" she inquired, perceiving the tension. "I miss you." "I miss you too," he confessed. "It's just hard. I'm thrilled for you, but I can't stop feeling like I'm losing you." "Mark, you aren't losing me. I promise. I am still here, and I want to make this work," she informed him. "Let's communicate every day, okay? I will tell you everything." "Okay," he replied, his voice softening. "I just need to know that you're still committed to us." "I am," she answered, her pulse pounding with conviction. "We're in this together, remember?" Sarah had a renewed feeling of hope after they hung up. She was determined to make this work, to show herself and Mark that they could handle this new chapter together. The following several weeks were a blur of activity. Sarah arrived home from New York with the excitement of the events still coursing through her veins. She was anxious to share her experiences with Mark, demonstrating how much she loved their connection despite her developing ambitions. She stepped through the door to find him waiting with a warm smile and a dish of her favorite meal on the table. "Welcome back, globetrotter," he taunted, his eyes shining with adoration. "Thanks. I missed you," she said him, throwing her arms around him. The embrace felt like a balm, alleviating the worries that had accumulated during her absence. As they sat down to eat, Sarah talked about her adventures in New York, the people she met, and the concepts that inspired her creativity. Mark listened carefully, his pride clear as she spoke passionately about her future plans. "I want to involve you in this journey," she continued, her eyes beaming with joy. "Your support means everything to me, and I want us to be partners in this." Mark nodded with a thoughtful gaze. "I appreciate it, Sarah. I want to be there for you, but I also need to be secure in our relationship. There's a lot to balance." "I know," she said, her heart heavy with comprehension. "But I believe we can accomplish this. We just need to keep communicating and be open about our emotions." In the coming weeks, they worked hard to prioritize their relationship. They planned frequent date nights to unwind from their hectic schedules and reconnect with one another. They also set aside time to talk about their own aspirations, making sure that each of their dreams were recognized and supported. As Sarah's business grew, she encountered new challenges that tested her commitment. There were late nights, difficult decisions, and bouts of self-doubt. But with Mark at her side, she felt emboldened to face every challenge. He became her sounding board, providing insights and support when she needed them the most. Sarah went home one evening, exhausted from an especially difficult day. Mark became aware of her anxiety almost immediately. "What's wrong?" he inquired, anxiety engraved on his features. "I'm just feeling the pressure," she confessed, collapsing into the couch. "I want this to succeed, but sometimes it feels like too much." Mark sat alongside her and took her hand in his. "Sarah, you are doing fantastic things. It's acceptable to be overwhelmed. Just remember that you don't have to do it all alone." His words rang true, and she felt a rush of thankfulness wash over her. "Thank you for always being there for me," she added, her voice full of emotion. "I don't know what I'd do without you." As they negotiated the ups and downs of their own journeys, they discovered strength in their collaboration. They learned to celebrate each other's accomplishments, no matter how modest, and to rely on one another in difficult times. However, as Sarah's business grew, she was offered another job that required her to go worldwide for several months. The thrill was apparent, as was the concern of how it would affect her relationship with Mark. When she told him the news, she could sense concern in his eyes. "This presents a significant opportunity, but what does it mean for us?" he inquired, his tone tinted with doubt. "I want to take it, but I also want to make sure we're okay," she said, her heart pounding. "I don't want to lose what we've built together." Mark drew a big breath, his expression serious. "I trust you, Sarah. However, we need to be proactive in our communication. I don't want to feel left behind again." "I promise to keep you involved," she stated genuinely. "We can schedule regular video calls, and I will share everything with you. You'll be a part of this adventure regardless of where I am." With a tentative agreement in place, Sarah prepared for her upcoming travels with a mix of excitement and trepidation. She was determined to make it work, to show that their love could overcome the obstacles of distance. While she set out on her foreign voyage, she brought Mark's love with her, knowing that they were both dedicated to growing together even while they pursued their own aspirations. Each day offered new adventures, and she made it a point to share them with him, keeping their bond strong despite the distance between them. Through the difficulties and joys, they discovered that love meant more than just being physically present, it was also about being emotionally open and supporting, regardless of distance. And as they went on their ways, they discovered that their link only became stronger, demonstrating that they could face anything life threw at them. Sarah's business grew over time, and she found herself surrounded by opportunities. Each city she visited provided new insights and connections, and she gladly shared her findings with Mark during their nightly video conversations. They'd laugh, develop ideas, and talk about their ambitions, fostering a sense of community that transcended physical distance. However, the difficulties of being separated began to weigh on them. Mark struggled with emotions of loneliness, frequently missing Sarah more than he expected. He spent his days painting and reading, but the evenings felt especially empty without her laughter booming throughout the house. Sarah observed Mark's eyes were tired while on a video conversation one night. "Are you okay?" she inquired, concern coming into her voice. "I'm just tired," he explained, attempting a smile. "It's been a long week. Do you want to discuss it?" She pressed lightly. He paused and then sighed. "I miss Sarah. I thought I could handle this, but it's more difficult than I expected." Her heart wrenched at his words. "I miss you, too. I wish I could be with you. But we're all in this together, remember? We will get through it." "I know," he replied, his tone softening. "I just want to make sure we are still on the same page. I do not want to feel as if I am losing you." "I promise you're not losing me," she told him. "I am still here, and I am devoted to us. Let's keep talking about our feelings, okay?" They promised to meet once a week to talk about their relationship and stay emotionally connected. This commitment helped to relieve some of the stress, allowing people to share their worries and frustrations openly. As Sarah resumed her journey, she made an attempt to surprise Mark with small gestures. She would write him postcards from each destination, revealing snatches of her travels, and she would periodically arrange for flowers to be brought to their house, reminding him that he was constantly in her thoughts. Mark sent Sarah a video message one evening after an especially long day. He had created a makeshift studio in their living room, surrounded by his paintings. "I wanted to show you what I've been working on," he continued, his eyes beaming as he unveiled a canvas of a brilliant sunset against a metropolitan skyline. "It's gorgeous," she screamed, her heart full with pride. "You've captured the colors perfectly." "I thought of you while I painted it," he confessed, a hesitant smile creeping across his lips. "It reminds me of all the places you're visiting." Tears welled in her eyes as she realized how much effort he was putting into staying in touch. "Thanks for sharing that with me. It means a lot to know you're thinking about me." As the months passed, they each experienced their own set of obstacles. Sarah navigated the challenges of international business, while Mark pursued his artistic interests, finding consolation in creativity. They learned to celebrate each other's accomplishments, no matter how modest, and to rely on one another in difficult times. However, as Sarah's firm grew, she was offered the opportunity to head a large project that would need her to spend a significant amount of time abroad. The thrill was apparent, as was the concern of how it would affect her relationship with Mark. When she told him the news, she could sense concern in his eyes. "This is an important step, but what does it mean for us?" he inquired, his tone tinted with doubt. "I want to take it, but I also want to make sure we're okay," she said, her heart pounding. "I don't want to lose what we've built together." Mark drew a big breath, his expression serious. "I trust you, Sarah. However, we need to be proactive in our communication. I don't want to feel left behind again." "I promise to keep you involved," she stated genuinely. "We can schedule regular video calls, and I will share everything with you. You'll be a part of this adventure regardless of where I am." With a tentative agreement in place, Sarah prepared for her upcoming travels with a mix of excitement and trepidation. She was determined to make it work, to show that their love could overcome the obstacles of distance. While she set out on her foreign voyage, she brought Mark's love with her, knowing that they were both dedicated to growing together even while they pursued their own aspirations. Each day offered new adventures, and she made it a point to share them with him, keeping their bond strong despite the distance between them. Through the difficulties and joys, they discovered that love meant more than just being physically present, it was also about being emotionally open and supporting, regardless of distance. And as they went on their ways, they discovered that their link only became stronger, demonstrating that they could face anything life threw at them. Sarah was caught up in a frenzy of meetings, presentations, and networking events as she settled into her new position. Her job was exciting, but the long hours and continual travel started to wear her down. She made it a point to communicate with Mark on a regular basis, sharing her experiences and listening to his updates, but she could see the pressure of their separation was weighing heavily on both of them. Sarah sat in her hotel room one evening, exhausted from the day's activities, staring at her phone. She paused before calling Mark, knowing he had been lonely. He responded in a pleasant voice laced with exhaustion. "Hey, how are things going?" "It's been a long day," she acknowledged, scratching her temples. "But I wanted to hear your voice." "I'm glad you called," he replied, his tone warming. "I have been working on a new painting. It's a little different from what I normally do." "Really? I cannot wait to see it." She responded, her enthusiasm genuine. "What is the theme?" "It's about the journey," he clarified. "I wanted to capture the feeling of being in two places at once, like you are right now." His words hit a chord, and she felt a rush of emotion pour over her. "That sounds lovely, Mark. I wish I could see it in person." "I wish you were here too," he added softly. "It's hard without having you around. I just want to make sure we're still in touch." "We are," she assured him. "I am still here, and I am devoted to us. Let us keep seeking solutions to bridge the gap." Sarah's resolve grew stronger as they talked. She recognized that despite the physical distance, their emotional bond remained strong. They talked about how to make their relationship feel more substantial, such as organizing virtual date evenings where they could cook the same dinner and share a glass of wine over video chat. They put these concepts into action over the next few weeks, resulting in moments of intimacy despite the distance. They would watch movies together, play online games, and even read the same book while discussing it as if they were sitting next to each other. These modest acts served to alleviate their loneliness and reminded them of the love they shared. However, as Sarah's idea advanced, she became more absorbed with it. Late evenings developed into early mornings, and she battled to combine her career goals and her relationship with Mark. She called him one night, exhausted from a long week. "Hey, I'm sorry I haven't been in touch as much," she replied, her heart sinking. "Things have been really hectic." "I understand," Mark said, but she could sense the disappointment in his tone. "I just miss you, Sarah. It feels like you are slipping away." "I'm not slipping away," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm just trying to make it work. I want to create a future for us." "I know, but I need to feel like I'm a part of that future," he added, his voice hard but gentle. "Can we make this work without losing each other?" His remark struck a chord with her, and she knew she needed to make a more deliberate effort to prioritize their relationship. "You're correct. I've been so focused on my work that I've disregarded us. Let's set aside definite times to chat so we can both feel connected." They agreed to plan regular check-ins to ensure that they felt valued and heard. Sarah's productivity increased as she made a conscious effort to balance her job and personal lives. She felt more focused and energized knowing she had Mark's support waiting for her at home. Sarah's job was completed successfully over the course of several months, and she went home, eager to see Mark again. When she went through the door, she was caught in his warm embrace, and all of the stress of the previous months faded away. "I missed you so much," he whispered, clutching her close. "I missed you, too," she said, her heart bursting with affection. "I'm so glad to be back." They spent the evening catching up, telling stories about their time apart, and rediscovering the small details that made their relationship great. Sarah realized how much she had taken for granted during her hectic months, and she resolved to make the most of their time together. As they settled into a new routine, they discovered a balance that suited both of them. Mark continued to pursue his art, while Sarah focused on her company, but they made it a point to encourage one another's interests. They went to art events together, celebrated each other's accomplishments, and built a home full of love and creativity. Throughout their journey, they discovered that love meant more than just being physically together, but also about nourishing each other's dreams and ambitions. They found that true partnership entailed being each other's biggest supporters, even when life took them in opposite directions. Sarah's business grew, and she began to look for additional opportunities to expand. She invited Mark to participate in brainstorming sessions, respecting his ideas and ingenuity. They worked together to create a vision for the future that embraced both of their aspirations, combining their interests into a common journey. Sarah gave Mark a contemplative look as she sat on the porch one evening. "What if we worked on a project together? Something that blends your artwork and my business?" Mark's eyes shone with enthusiasm. "That might be incredible. We may produce a range of products that use both your designs and my artwork. It would be a unique combination of our skills." They spent the following 2 weeks refining their concept, pouring their souls into the project. They worked late into the night, driven by passion and creativity, and the experience drew them even closer. As they discussed their hopes and dreams, their partnership gained a revitalized sense of purpose. When the launch date finally arrived, they stood side by side, full of excitement. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and they celebrated their accomplishment with a small gathering of friends and family. As they raised their glasses in toast, Sarah felt a surge of thankfulness for their journey together. "Here's to us," she exclaimed, her voice full with enthusiasm. "To our dreams, our love, and the adventures that lie ahead." Mark smiled, his eyes full of pride. "And to never losing sight of what matters most, each other." As they embraced, Sarah recognized that their love had not only survived but thrived in the face of distance and ambition. They had learned to talk openly, support each other, and celebrate their own adventures while creating a life together. In the months that followed, they continued to develop personally and professionally. Their collaboration flourished, and they enjoyed the creative process. They traveled together on work, discovering new cities and cultures, and each journey strengthened their bond. Throughout it all, they remained devoted to developing their relationship. They scheduled date nights, weekend vacations, and quiet evenings at home to ensure that they never forgot about the love that brought them together in the first place. Sarah and Mark were certain that they could tackle any problem that arose in the future. Their love was a tribute to perseverance, growth, and the power of cooperation, and they were eager to discover where their journey would take them next. With each passing day, they accepted the unpredictable nature of life, knowing that their love would be the anchor that kept them grounded. They started dreaming about the next steps in their journey together, including the potential of establishing a family. Sarah brought up the matter one evening when they were sitting on the couch. "Have you ever considered what it would be like to have children?" she inquired, her pulse beating with the vulnerability of the query. Mark looked contemplative, his brow furrowing slightly. "I have actually. I believe that would be fantastic, but I'm also concerned about how we'd manage things." "I know it wouldn't be easy," she said calmly. "However, I believe we can make it work. We've already demonstrated that we can face issues together." He nodded, a smile coming across his face. "You're correct. We've developed a solid foundation, and I believe we can provide a loving atmosphere for a child." As they talked about their hopes and anxieties, they found they were on the same page. They envisioned a future filled with laughter, creativity, and love, and the prospect of extending their family seemed like a natural step in their path. In the months that followed, they began to plan for this new phase. They took parenting seminars, read books on child development, and even chatted with friends who had children to learn about the reality of parenthood. Each chat pushed them closer together, reinforcing their devotion to one another and their future family. As Sarah's business grew, she adjusted her schedule to ensure that she could match her career with their expanding family plans. Mark also found ways to incorporate his art into their vision, creating sculptures that emphasized family and connection. While attending a local art show, they came across a stall selling handmade toys and children's books. Sarah's eyes brightened as she took up a nicely carved wooden toy. "This would be ideal for our future child," she continued, her voice full of enthusiasm. Mark smiled and watched her with admiration. "I can already picture our child playing with it," he remarked, his pulse racing at the prospect. As they pursued their aspirations of parenting, they made a concerted effort to enhance their relationship. They organized frequent date evenings to ensure that they prioritized their relationship despite the changes. They would reminisce about their trip, sharing laughter and love while reaffirming their devotion to each other. However, as they prepared for this new chapter, they encountered problems. There were times of doubt and worry, particularly about the realities of parenthood. They discussed their principles, parenting techniques, and how they would deal with the inevitable ups and downs of childrearing. Sarah expressed concern to Mark one evening after a particularly emotional conversation. "What if we're not prepared for this? What if we struggle?" Mark grasped her hands in his and maintained a steady look. "We may confront obstacles, but I believe we can overcome them together. We've already overcome so much, and I believe in us." His comments soothed her, and she gained a new sense of purpose. "You're correct. We'll work things out as we go. We'll rely on one another and our support system." As they continued to prepare for parenting, they also made time for self-care, recognizing the significance of looking after themselves. They went on weekend excursions, spent peaceful evenings at home, and engaged in activities that made them happy, ensuring that they stayed connected as a pair. Finally, they decided to take the next step in their quest. They began the process of attempting to conceive, full of hope and anticipation. Each month brought a combination of excitement and concern, but they relied on one another for support, celebrating minor wins along the way. They experienced both trials and joy during the course of the months. They learned to deal with the emotional roller coaster of trying to conceive, finding solace in their common experiences. They would often sit together and talk about their future goals and the type of parents they wanted to be. Sarah smiled at Mark as they sat on the balcony and watched the sunset. "No matter what happens, I'm grateful to be on this journey with you." Mark wrapped his arm around her, bringing her closer. "Me, too. We're in this together, and I wouldn't have it any other way." Their friendship became stronger as they continued to support each other through the ups and downs of their journey. They learned to appreciate the small moments, finding delight in the process rather than the end result. After months of trying, Sarah finally received the news they had hoped for. She stood in the bathroom, staring at the positive pregnancy test, her heart pounding with both disbelief and delight. "Mark!" she called, her voice shaking from excitement. He ran into the bathroom, his eyes widening as he noticed the test in her hands. "Is that?" he stammered, his voice full of astonishment. "Yes. We're going to become parents," she shouted, her eyes welling up with joy. Mark wrapped her in a tight embrace, pulling her off the ground as they both laughed and cried in surprise. "It's incredible. I can't believe this," he remarked, his heart full of love and enthusiasm. As they celebrated the news, they began to fantasize about their future as a family. They discussed baby names, nursery themes, and the ideals they intended to impart in their child. Each chat drew them closer together, strengthening their bond as they prepared for this new chapter in their lives. Sarah enthusiastically accepted her pregnancy during the next few weeks. She took prenatal classes, read childbirth literature, and prioritized self-care. Mark stayed by her side the entire time, attending appointments and assisting her in preparing for their child's birth. Sarah put her head on Mark's shoulder while they reclined on the couch one evening. "I can't believe how much our lives are about to change," she exclaimed, her voice full of surprise. Mark grinned as he ran his fingers through her hair. I understand. It's a little terrifying, but I'm really happy to embark on this trip with you. They experienced the obstacles of pregnancy together over the course of several months. There were times of discomfort, restless nights, and emotional swings, but they relied on one another for support. They learned to communicate openly about their emotions, which helped them stay connected during this transforming period. As Sarah's due date approached, they were both excited and worried about the arrival of their kid. They set up the nursery with love and care, stocking up on all the necessities. Mark created a lovely mural on the nursery wall, representing a peaceful countryside that matched their dreams for their child's future. Sarah finally went into labor. Mark was her rock, holding her hand and encouraging her with each contraction. They worked together, relying on the power of their love and relationship. When their kid eventually arrived, they were overcome with emotion as they welcomed her into the world. They shed happy tears as they held their kid for the first time. "We did it," Sarah said, her heart full of joy. Mark glanced at her, his eyes full of pride. "This is just the beginning of our greatest adventure." In the weeks that followed, they faced the hardships of new parenthood together. They learned to care for their baby, finding delight in the little things, midnight feedings, diaper changes, and the sound of their baby's laughter. They helped each other get through the sleepless nights and the tremendous love that flooded their home. As they adjusted to their new routine, they made a concerted effort to emphasize their relationship. They planned frequent date nights at home to reminisce about their adventure and dream about the future. They also set aside time for self-care, ensuring that they felt supported and respected. Sarah and Mark discovered a deeper level of love and connection as they navigated the ups and downs of parenthood. They learned to talk openly about their wants and feelings, which helped them stay a cohesive team. They celebrated every milestone, from their baby's first grin to his first steps, and treasured the memories they were making as a family. As they looked forward, they realized that their trip was only starting. They were eager to go on new adventures and confident in their ability to overcome obstacles together. Their love had grown stronger with each twist and turn, and they were ready to tackle life's challenges together.